Okay, so what we're going to look at now is regarding quotas and service quotas. So basically, we're continuing on just looking at this account management. So in the last video, we just looked at the AWS Management Console. Today, we're going to look at service quotas. Basically, if you go into the link for service quotas, let's find out what service quotas actually means to AWS. So it sort of says, this is a tutorial here. It says service quotas is an AWS service that helps you manage your quotas, formerly referred to as limits, for over 100 AWS services from one location. In addition to viewing quota values, you can also request a quota increase from the Service Quotas console. Okay, so basically what it's allowing you to do is make sure that you don't spend more than you're really intending to actually spend. So, your service quota is basically sort of saying, I'm going to keep you at the lowest level, and it's only when you actually need something, you can increase your quota. So it's like anything in life, if you were building a building, um, the quota basis sort of said, you can only have 50,000 bricks to build your house, and when you're towards kind of reaching that limit of the actual, building the house, you decide that you need another 20,000, then 20,000 can be allocated to your account. So it's that type of scenario. Um, and it really does kind of help you to manage and control all costs that are part of your activity on the cloud here. So basically it sort of says it's AWS experience, time to complete is 10 minutes, cost to complete, it's the the, the free tier, which is what we're basically staying on. And if I click into this service accounts, where does this bring us to? Okay, so this basically, that link there. Um, so what we're going to do here is we're going to take this link, we're going to put that here, and we're going to go back here, and we're going to take this link because this is actually, part of our documentation here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to um, I've sort of said documentation here. Yeah, I think I'm going to kind of start saving these links off so that I can access them kind of quicker. Definitely for the exam. But if we kind of go through the documentation just right now, so we know what a kind of service code it actually does. And then so it says, okay, so this is your tutorial. What a basis of this is creating an AWS account. It's free tier eligible. So that's exactly what we kind of did here. We have our account here on the free tier. We've looked at this in the previous video. It says access and customize the service quotas dashboard. So complete the following steps to access the service quotas dashboard and customize the cards that appear in the dashboard. Okay, so for more information you can go here. But basically, you can start by navigating to the management console, enter service quotas. So you can enter service quotas into your console, and then you're starting to sort of see why it's so important to actually have your account to practice on. In the search bar, select service quotas, so it looks like that. So I'm going to click on this. Okay, and then from here it says on the service quotas dashboard, it says modify dashboard cards. So here, um, go to dashboard. Oh, modify dashboard cards. Okay, so that was a little bit kind of strange that I kind of had to find my dashboard first of all, and then basically sort of go into modify dashboard cards here. That was a little bit kind of strange because I thought it was actually going to kind of reach out to me kind of a bit quicker and easier than that. But you can sort of see here your dashboard looks like this. One thing I want to kind of mention here is also that this is your dashboard, but Amazon are constantly improving the look and feel of you can sort of see it's a newer version here. So the documentation may not be 99. It's probably going to be 99%, exactly what you're looking for, but it may not be 100% of what you're actually looking for. So it says in the dashboard services preference box, select customize the AWS services you want to include as cards on the dashboard. So let's sort of see if I modify dashboard cards, I can add and remove all of these services here. Okay, I can choose. It doesn't look like I can actually choose I can't drop down this because it's disabled. choose services. It says choose up to 9 services you want to display in the dashboard. So here I'm not allowed to pick any because basically we don't have actually anything um, services, that have actually been kind of stood up in our cloud environment as yet. But I can remove these if I really kind of wanted to. So I'm assuming if I remove this, it comes back in here. Then I can kind of find this. But I'm going to cancel that for the moment. I'm just going to leave the actual defaults here for just demonstration purposes. And then, as we sort of said there, you can choose the services, and then you can basically sort of go into here. You can say I want to remove that, but the new service I want to bring back in is a T now. Okay, so I can kind of save that, and then it sort of says your preferences have been updated. Okay, so it says um, choose up to 9 services you want to display in the dashboard. That's okay. Review quotas for a service. So complete the following steps to review the current quotas across various AWS. So you can also kind of take this more information here, so you can actually do it on the CLI, which is here, or you can actually do it in the management console. So you've actually two choices, and this is why it's kind of important that we've already stood up our CLI, because if I really wanted to um, run this, so if I just took this, and I haven't done this, I do all of this kind of live, but if I really wanted to, I could go into my iTerm, which I've kind of stood up before, and I'm going to go to my AWS study, and if I run this, let's sort of see what happens here. So you can sort of see AWS service quotas, list that. Basically, it sort of says service code, so it's looking for service. Oh, it is. It says it here. I basically have to have a service code here. Basically, this is the command that you're basically running into the AWS, and then you're basically saying, um, get me the service quotas and list the AWS default service quotas with the service code ES. I'm going to find out what ES service code for Amazon Open Search service is ES, for example. Okay, now we don't have any of this stood up, but I want to just kind of try it and see what comes out of it. So if I do this, it should, it should actually kind of complain a little bit, but it says this, you must specify a region, right? So here it doesn't look like I've actually configured my regions as yet, so I can kind of go into AWS configure. I'd have to have my access key. I think I might kind of create a different kind of video for that, because I don't want to kind of get into that right now. But basically, going back to your kind of service quotas, you could do it from the CLI and you could do it from the management console. So it says, how exactly to kind of do that in the services, AWS services here. Choose AWS services. So we'll go back into my console, go into AWS services here. Select the service from the list. So here it's typing in cloud. Okay. So I can just sort of say, cloud in here. Let's sort of see what comes up. Okay, so then you basically get for your service quotas. So I'm in my service quotas. I'm looking at the AWS services as part of the service quotas. So let's sort of say, for argument's sake, I say cloud map. Here you can sort of see now I have the quota name, which is a unique identifier for my service here. But the quota name basically sort of says you have a quota name, you have your applied quota value, you have your default value. So adjustability means count level or non-adjustable. So this one here would be not adjustable, and this one here would be a count level. So if I really wanted to, I could basically click this one, and I can so say request increase at account level. So instead of like having, let's sort of say just, and this is my account obviously, instead of just having something like, 2000, I could basically increase that to 3000 if I really needed to. Now I'm not going to do that because I don't want to kind of incur any costs. But the kind of point is, what I'm trying to do is understand a little bit about how quota um, quotas actually work back in AWS. Because if for example, um, something came up on the actual exam itself, it will be, important to actually know. So this is where we were this is where this one's just doing an example for canary limit here, change the quota value. You can sort of see they've updated, where we were kind of showing it was definitely a little bit kind of nicer, you know, that kind of layout seems to be a bit more kind of modern than this one. And then you can kind of, apply that change and request it, and then you can view pending and resolve requests. Now that you've requested a service quota increase, you can view the status of pending requests. Then it says complete the following steps to view pending or resolved requests. And then you'll sort of see there's a case number. So with AWS support, you basically get a case number, and then the case number will open a ticket for you. So basically, you can see here this is going to be like quota requested for canary limit. I've last updated on this time, and you can also go into quota request history, and I can just close this for a second. I can go into quota request history, and you can sort of see right now I don't have any actual quotes because I'm not asking them to increase my quota as yet because I don't want to incur any costs. I want to simply just learn what quotas really mean to AWS, and then I'm going to come back here, and so it says okay, um, to review requests. It says congratulations, you've used service quotas to view quotas and request a quota increase in your AWS account. Okay. So you can also sort of say, look at the next steps to learn about how to set up a CloudWatch alarms in the service quota console, and how to create a quota request template. Use the following resources. So as you can sort of see, these tutorials are really, really good because what they're actually basically doing is they're kind of saying, well, now that you learned how to do an actual service request quota, why don't you kind of try and follow these, and learn a little bit kind of more about them, because we'll show you how to, set up like a CloudWatch alarm so that, you can be notified when you're close to a quoted value threshold. You can create like a template so that, you can reuse that template every single time that you want. But right now, we're just going to sort of say, well, we've actually learned a little bit about actual, service quotas themselves, how to increase them, and really what they're kind of doing inside of the AWS account. So I'm going to leave it there.